Now, I know I've said this many times, but today we are talking about genuinely one of the most hotly anticipated and long overdue super shoe updates. This is the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro 4. I should start off by saying that I've got a long romantic history with Adizero when it comes to their race day product. I've worn every version of the Adios Pro. I wore the Adizero Pro, which was Adidas's first entry into the carbon plated running shoe space. And I've also worn numerous versions of the Boston and the Takumi Sen. So when I finally managed to get my hands on an early sample version of the Pro 4, I was incredibly excited to see what Adidas had done with it and to see how they had brought this shoe on from the Pro 3, but also how they had potentially implemented some of the trickle-down technology seen on the Evo 1 into a more consumer-friendly offering. So the best place to start is probably with the basic stats and figures of the Adios Pro 4. And I should say, just as a bit of a disclaimer, at the time of recording, I don't have a clear tech sheet with all of those details on directly from Adidas, but I can tell you that we've still got a stack height of 39.5 millimeters in the heel because it says so on the side of the shoe. And I'm guessing we've probably still got around a 6 to 6.5 millimeter drop as we saw with the Adios Pro 3, meaning we've got about 33 mil of stack in the forefoot. Weight-wise, and obviously these days weight is a massive talking point with super shoes. Everybody wants to see a shoe come in as close to or under 200 grams as possible. And I'm very happy to say that with the fourth iteration of the Adios Pro, we are now very close to that 200 gram threshold. Yeah, boy. With my UK 8.5 sample size coming in at exactly 204 grams for both shoes, which nice to see from a quality control standpoint, but also really good to see Adidas with a very competitive, consumer-facing road racing shoe. Just on the note of weight, the Adios Pro 3 in my 8.5 comes in at about 220 grams. So you're looking at a pretty solid 15 or 16 odd grams of weight saving with the Pro 4. Right then, with the numbers out of the way, let's dive into some of the actual key updates that you can find on the Adios Pro 4. And if we start with the upper, this is totally redesigned, which is going to be music to a lot of runners' ears. The previous upper on the Pro 3 was not terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but the light lock upper that we've got here is a one-way woven mesh, which is, in simple terms, unbelievably comfortable. It's nice and soft to the touch, but it also provides a much closer and more personal fit to the foot, I would say, particularly in the midfoot region. So things like lockdown and just general comfort on foot is much improved with the Pro 4. I would actually go as far to say as it's probably one of the nicest uppers I've ever felt in hand. When you give it a little stroke, it's like a soft version of tarpauling almost. So take with that what you will, but it's a very nice upper, and it provides a very pleasant fit on foot. Now, one of the other big changes to the upper that I'm incredibly happy about is with the tongue. And it's not fully gusseted, but it is now stitched in on both sides of the shoe. Whereas, as you can see on the Pro 3, it was quite flappy and just free roaming in the shoe. So having it stitched in just means that for me, the tongue lays better on the top of the foot, and it's a lot easier to get a more secure fit first time without any faff. So one of the other things that I love about this new tongue is the fact that we've got a strip of squidgy padding, which allows the pressure to just be alleviated from the top of the foot. I think, honestly, it was maybe one of my personal biggest issues with the previous version of the shoe, and that I've seen reported online in numerous cases, is just excessive pressure from the laces on the really flimsy tongue that you had on the Pro 3. So it's nice to see that Adidas have rectified that in a really simple but effective way. And it does work. I've found it to be much better from a comfort standpoint when lacing up the Pro 4. Last couple of points on the upper, the lacing system is also revised, which is, I can't tell you how happy I am about that, basically. It makes such a huge difference. The Adios Pro 4 is now incredibly easy to lace up and get a solid lockdown on first time of asking. Whereas for me with the Pro 3, it's an amazing shoe, and once you've got the lacing right, it was perfect. but it definitely took a little while and a bit of managing for me to get a really dialed in fit with the Pro 3. So to have this updated system on the Pro 4 is a very, very welcome change. We've still got this little Elfia pull tab thing, which to be fair does definitely help to get your foot in the shoe, but it's also got a very nice meaningful quote on the back if you're into that kind of thing. And it says, "This too shall pass."
You shall not pass!
So there we go. Moving on to the midsole. Now, although we don't have any direct communication from Adidas that this is a new formulation of Lightstrike Pro, it's not called Lightstrike Pro 2.0 or anything like that. Definitely both in hand and underfoot. It's very obvious to me that this is a softer, less dense, more compliant formulation of that Lightstrike Pro special sauce. The most obvious visual change to the midsole of the Pro 4 is definitely the alteration to the geometry, and we've now got the rocker placed at 60% of the length of the shoe. Oh, got it, yes. I mentioned in the intro that it's really nice to see Adidas implementing some trickle-down tech from the Evo into the Pro 4, and that's not just visually with the extended stripes and the fact that it looks quite similar, but mainly that 60% rocker point is one of the key flagship bits of tech that we saw on the Evo when it first launched. So to see it here is very, very nice. Now, in simple terms for you or I, the fact that the rocker is now moved to 60% of the length of the shoe essentially means that it's going to promote getting up on that forefoot and a quicker turnover and a more poppy sensation off the forefoot. But this is actually backed up by scientific lab data that Adidas have conducted with their elite athletes, which has also been shown to improve their running economy and trigger forward momentum. Now, obviously being Adidas's top tier super shoe, there is still a stiffening agent in here. And in Adidas's case, we're still utilizing the Energy Rods 2.0. I will say at the time of recording, I don't know exactly if there are any tweaks or changes to the thickness, to the flexibility or rigidity of those Energy Rods 2.0, but they still do a very similar job and provide that nice aggressive snap that you get in the Adios Pro 3, 2, and indeed the 4. Taking a look at the outsole of the Adios Pro 4, there's also all change here with a brand new rubber compound being utilized, which they are calling Light Traction. Now, clues in the name, but this is essentially just a nice lightweight rubber compound, and it's enabled Adidas to get a complete full coverage of the midsole as well. So there's absolutely no exposed Lightstrike Pro apart from on the decoupling section that you've got at the rear foot of the shoe. Now again, obviously Adidas haven't just done this on a whim, and it comes from athlete-led data. So you'll see that on some sections of the shoe, it's a little bit more of a smoother application and more aggressive in areas like the lateral forefoot section and the lateral heel section of the shoe. However, you will still see that we've got a nice little token strip of Continental on the toe-off area, which I'm assuming is just going to provide a little bit of extra grip when you need it the most in wet conditions, and maybe a bit of added durability as well. So at this moment in time, I've only done 2 sessions in the Adios Pro 4, so it's very difficult to make any conclusive assumptions when it comes to the durability of the shoe. But I will say that I found the Adios Pro 3 to be up there with the most durable super shoes that I've worn. I've got well over 300k in a couple of pairs of the Adios Pro 3 and had no issues at all when it comes to outsole durability or degradation of that outsole. So I would hope that with a new rubber compound and with the amount of coverage that we've got here, that would still be the case. And I'm not really seeing any early signs that would indicate otherwise. Last thing to note on the outsole is that we've now got some decoupling going on at the rear foot of the shoe, which is different to what we saw on previous versions. Now, obviously, when you start carving out the midsole, you're going to shave some weight, and that is probably partially why we've managed to get this shoe so close to 200 grams on the nose. But equally, it's a common trend with super shoes these days. This little bit of decoupling allows for a bit more energy storage, but also from a stability standpoint, each side of the rear foot of the shoe can compress independently, making it a bit more personal for different runners. So with that said, obviously the most important part about any running shoe update is how it performs on the run, especially when it's going to be stacked against a much loved shoe like the Pro 3 was. So without any further ado, let's jump into the performance test of the Pro 4 and see if it really was worth waiting 2.5 years for its release. Right, so the first session that I did in the Pro 4, I wanted to make it a big one. I wanted it to be a juicy one where you can really come away from it knowing that you've put a shoe through the ringer and given it a solid test. And so I don't think there's many sessions better than that, than 10 by a K of 60 seconds recovery. So that's exactly what I did. First impressions wise, when lacing up the Pro 4, like we mentioned earlier, with the new and improved lacing system and the tongue and the heel counter, it is just overall a far more seamless experience getting a secure lockdown with the Pro 4. I didn't have any hot spots, niggles, issues on the run at all. And I should say as well that it was a very hot day when I did that first session in the shoe, and I was unacceptably moist by the end of it. And the shoe, from an upper standpoint, didn't feel like it absorbed much water. And I actually put the shoe on the scales post-session, and I think it came in at about 210 grams. So in terms of absorption, it was actually really, really low. So the upper is nicely hydrophobic. The thing I was most excited about is obviously the changes that we've got to the midsole, and more specifically that rocker. I really wanted to know if it had made any perceptible difference to the ride of the shoe, whether it was noticeably getting you up on the forefoot more. And I will say that I really think it made quite a significant difference to me personally underfoot. I also think that this slightly new formula, whatever it is that Adidas have done with the Light Strike Pro that we've got in the Pro 4, is just far more pleasant and compliant underfoot upon initial ground contact. You really get that sensation of sinking into the midsole before it pings you off on your way off the toe. I found the Pro 3 to be an absolute cruiser of a shoe. When you're running half marathon pace, it just clicks and it feels fantastic. But the characteristics, I suppose, of the Light Strike Pro that you found in the Pro 3 are definitely overall a bit more dense. So getting down to 5K, 10K pace felt just a little bit more tricky when compared to some of the other options out there. Whereas now I think with the Pro 4, it is infinitely more versatile across those shorter distances as well. Whilst we're on the topic of versatility, I did also take these bad boys down the track for a quite disgusting 5K specific session of 4x1K 400. And I guess one of the biggest things that you're going to be asking about when it comes to taking a super shoe on the track is stability around the bends. And to be honest, maybe it's because I was so focused on hitting pace on the 400s and the K reps that I didn't really think about it. But I had absolutely no qualms, no issues going around those corners whilst running at 5K intensity in the Pro 4. Overall then, I would say that the 4th iteration of the Adios Pro is a very, very solid update. The Pro 3 was a fantastic shoe, loved and worn by many, many runners. I'd probably go as far to say as it's probably one of the most worn super shoes in recent times. But the Pro 4 takes things up a notch. It feels faster, it looks faster. There are really nice, actual practical, tangible changes to the Pro 4 that overall just make it a comfier, but also lighter, faster, more nimble race day offering. So there we go, that's just about gonna do it for this review of the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro 4. If you're looking to get your feet in a pair, there will be some exclusive opportunities to secure them in a very limited quantity, but make sure that you keep your eyes peeled to the Pro Direct Running socials and sign up to the Pro Direct Running Club to find out all of the information and make sure that you don't miss out. If you liked today's video, give it a like. And drop us a comment down below and let us know what you think of the updates to the Adios Pro 4, and we'll do our best to get back to any questions or queries you may have. Turn your notifications on so you don't miss any future running related uploads, and I'll see you next time with another shoe review. Nice. Well, thank you then. Cheers then. Cheers then, bye.